Hello, welcome back to Tom Mason, my main YouTube channel out of all 17 I run. Today we're doing another fantastic full-length interview from within my documentary John Comer, the Man Who Was Doctor Who, all about Jon Pertwee. Do still watch it. Now, this one is even more different. It's my first ever interview using 3 cameras and in a studio. So, what this means is basically, Albion Studios is the name of the studio I used to film at, but the person I'm interviewing is called James Mellor. Now, James Mellor is one of the co-owners of this studio, but funnily enough, is a big Doctor Who fan. So I don't want to give too much away because you're about to see it in the interview. If you don't already know the most of the information from within my documentary, because I got to fit in more of his questions because his answers were short and snappy, some more got to put in. So what you're gonna see is a multi-camera angled interview, and it's amazing, and you're gonna love it. So much that I think it's a good interview. It's nice, it's heartwarming, and it looks like an interview you would see on the TV. So, without further ado, please enjoy. If you're watching this on YouTube, might I add, because you might be listening to this on the audio platforms. But, without further ado, enjoy the Blue Box Files! Woohoo! So, I'm here with James Mellor, who will tell us what it's like working with the man himself. So the first question to start off with the opening, how did you get into Doctor Who?
I've been a fan since a very young age. I think the first ones I watched probably were sort of the end of Tom Baker's era, and then into Peter Davison. So Peter Davison was really the Doctor that I knew who was on the TV when I was younger. But when I started getting into sort of going to conventions and that sort of thing, Jon Pertwee was very much the fans' Doctor. So he was always one of the ones that I have some of the fondest memories of.
And how did you get to work with Jon Pertwee himself?
So with John, it started. This was back in 1995. I was lucky enough to get work experience on Yorkshire TV. On Countdown, which was filmed over in Leeds at Kirkshill Road. So I was doing work experience there for the week, and the special guest star on the last day, they filmed about 5 episodes a day, and Jon Pertwee was the guest. In fact, it was 2 guests. It was Jon Pertwee and David Jacobs, who was also, he was on the radio and things. So I got to effectively meet my hero. And I'm sure I've even got a picture which I'll show you later of me and John in the studio, and I've even got my little 30th anniversary Doctor Who pin, because that was about this period of time it was.
And what was it like working with John?
He's a wonderful, charismatic, kind gentleman. I have this lovely memory of once the film had finished. In those days, everyone headed down to the ITV bar. So we're all in the ITV bar, and we're on room sipping champagne. Talking to Jon Pertwee and David Jacobs as we are now. And I thought, this is surreal. And they were talking about times during the war, because John was a Navy man, and they were talking about these manoeuvres when they were out at sea. And I'm like going, I'm in the presence of legends. So yeah, John, just a lovely chap. We lost him too soon.
And what was it like actually on the set when you were working with
him? Very personable, very charismatic. Yeah, a real gentleman to everybody, not just to the cast and the crew. He's very much someone who brought everyone together and had fun with what he did. You could tell he enjoyed every moment of what he did.
And to use a cliche term, but were you starstruck when you first met him?
So I'd met him a few years before think it was a Manopticon convention, one of the first ones they did in Manchester. So I remember going on to that with my mum took me. So I was quite a bit younger, and I had this horrible thing where we had the old film cameras, and we hadn't loaded the film properly. So I got back, and literally all my 24 prints were all on one thing. I was gutted, but then I was able to look enough. He was doing a signing over in Rochdale a year or so later, so I went over. I remember getting the bus over with a friend of mine, and we went to see him get him to sign some things. Yeah. So yeah, lovely chap.
And since working with him, has your opinions on John changed?
Not at all. I mean, I've been also lucky enough to work with his son Sean. So later in my career, I was working at Sky TV, and quite a lot of time we used to need to do have voiceover artists in to do pieces. And Sean came in and actually shared the story of meeting with John and showed the pictures. And it was great because I was like, "Oh, I'm going to show these to my mum." Yeah. So that was really nice. So it's nice to have that legacy continuing in a way.
Yeah, and did Sean work in a similar way to the way John worked?
Well, it was a different environment, so it was. I would say Sean is as charismatic. He's a different style of actor, but he's definitely got some of John's characteristics in what he does, and definitely a nice man to work with.
And if you didn't know that John was related to Sean, would you be able to tell that they were related?
There's definitely some characteristics in there for sure. You can see. I think there is a picture of Sean in John's Doctor Who outfit on social media, and it is a spitting image, I think.
Yeah. And what was your favourite memory of John's era when he was on Doctor Who?
Oh, that's a good question. So many good stories to go from. I guess I really enjoyed the Sea Devils, because again, I think John was probably in his element, being back at sea from his Navy days. So you can just tell he's having fun. He was known as the action man doctor back in those days, always jumping on different vehicles and doing all those sort of things. So I could tell that was a really nice story. And what I liked about stories from that era is they spent time building up the characters, building up the suspense, which I sort of miss with some of these newer ones where you got to cram it all into 45 minutes.
Yeah. And since working with John, what's your opinion on the new Big Finish stuff now that they've got impressionists in, that's a bad word to use, in to do the John's work?
I like John Kuleshov used to say. I think it's amazing that his legacy is able to continue with the various stories. I've got a few of them at home. Obviously, it's never going to be the same, but I think it's great that those stories and those adventures of that era can still be explored. So I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. And do you wish you had worked with him in more?
I would have loved to have had that opportunity to work with him more. Yeah, it's really quite sad because at the time he was touring, doing his one-man show, and I was in the process of booking tickets, and then sadly he passed away. So I was absolutely gutted at that stage, and as I say, he went before his time, in my opinion.
Yeah, and is he like a nice person just in general?
I would say so. From everything that I've known and seen him at conventions and things, I'd say he was there for the fans. He understood what it meant to be a fan and what it meant for him, and he was so kind and generous with his time with everybody. Yeah. Where some of the other actors may not have had as much time with the fans, as it were. But John was always one to be like, he was there. He would be there, making sure everyone had their signature.
Yeah. And what did you think of John when you first saw him on the TV?
Well, that's probably some of the old repeats in the 80s that the BBC did. I think it was The Curse of Peladon. I think that was the one I saw, and I just remember it being really atmospheric. That particular story, and it was just like, oh, who's this Doctor? There was a bit of a new one, and it was just like, it didn't feel as though just because the different actors were playing him, he totally felt like the same character.
And do you still have a passion for Doctor Who so many years, nearly 60 years later?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm not 60 years, but I was born after John's tenure, but I've absolutely got a passion for Doctor Who. I've got all the Blu-rays, a lot of so you've got a couple of the old annuals here. Much to my wife's frustration. So what have you got now?
And looking forward to November, which is quite forward, but not too forward. Are you excited for the 60th anniversary?
I am incredibly excited, having Russell T Davies back in the helm for the writing, and David Tennant coming back as now the 14th Doctor. I think we're going to be in for quite a treat. Certainly from my memory of when his tenure ended, those set of stories, you can just watch them again now, and they hold up. So I'm expecting good things.
Yeah. And what's your hopes for the future of Doctor Who?
Well, now that obviously from an international point of view, they've done the deal with Disney to be on Disney Plus. So I think Doctor Who is going to get that dream of there won't be any more wobbly sets. As much as I love the wobbly sets, because I love the classic Who, but I think to have the budgets and things to bring it up to be on par with Star Trek, Star Wars, and all the other big sci-fi shows, I think it's exciting times.
And what's your thoughts on the incredible, exciting character of Beat the Meat returning?
I was so thrilled by that, because I collected the Doctor Who magazine. I started at issue 88 or something. So I remember these. He was on the ones with Colin Baker's Sixth Doctor. I just think that's cool. It's such a nice homage to that era. And I just saw that clip. I thought, yes.
Like so many people did. And so finally, and what's your thoughts on the snazzy brand new Doctor Who logo?
Well, I love they've gone back to the classic of the 1970s, the diamond shaped logo. I think it's just got a nice classic look. It's perfect for the fact that we're on the 60th anniversary year. So it's lovely to see that back, because we've had quite a few different styles over the years. But I think this one particularly represents the gravitas now that the franchise has reached.
Well, long may it continue. Well, thank you for letting me interview you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Tom.
Don't forget to subscribe to the official Tom Mason YouTube channel